From the heart of Silicon Valley in the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area, I am Sudipto Chatterjee and this is Economically Speaking with Atanu De. On Economically Speaking, we talk about economic topics and how they affect our world. Atanu, welcome back. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm getting ready to get on more traveling, but for the moment, I'm in one place. So what would you like to talk about today?
Last time we were talking of transaction and opportunity costs, and you seem to imply that opportunity cost is something that's very fundamental and central to the understanding of economics, or at least how economics think about it. Why is it such a big deal?
Normally what we do is, as laypersons, we talk about costs. And the cost is what the direct cost we incur for doing something. But economists also talk about opportunity cost because they look at what is it that you give up. When you try to, when you do action A, it takes some time and money to get action A done. But with the same time and money, you could have done other things. You could have done actions B, C, D, etc. So the opportunity cost is the benefits that you forego because you're not doing any of the other actions that you could have done with the same amount of cost in terms of time and money. Therefore, opportunity cost is a broader concept than just the direct cost of doing something and the benefits that you get from it. Let me give you an example. You have you decide to cook a meal yourself. Assume that the cost of the meal, the ingredients is say $10 and it takes you an hour. So what is the cost of the meal to you? It is of course $10. It's easy to say that you bought the ingredients for $10 and you cooked up a meal. But that's not the total cost. You spent an hour in preparing the meal. That hour could have been used somewhere else. So if you say that suppose your per hour wage rate is $100, in that case, the opportunity cost of making the meal is $100 plus the $10. It is not just the $10 that you have spent on it. You have foregone the opportunity of doing something else with that time that you had.
Okay.
This idea of opportunity cost derives from the fact that you have different options available to you. In case you were stranded in a desert island and there's nothing else you could have done with your time anyway, so your opportunity cost might be zero. Therefore, your cost of doing something is much lower when there are no other options available to you. But if there are options available to you, then your cost goes up. If you are working for a company and get paid $80,000 a year, and you decide to go get an MBA, and the MBA, let's say, is going to be 2 years of study when you cannot work, and the MBA itself, the tuition and living expenses are something. Let's say the tuition is $50,000 a year, so there's $100,000 for the 2 years of doing MBA. But that is not your total cost of doing an MBA. The total cost of doing an MBA is the $100,000 in tuition, plus the fact that if you had not gone to the MBA for 2 years, you would have got a salary for 2 years of $80,000 a year, which is twice $80,000, $160,000 is your opportunity cost, plus your direct cost of $100,000 in tuition. So your total cost of doing an MBA is $160,000 of foregone salary, plus the direct cost of the MBA, $100,000, is $260,000. Now, I did not include in it the cost of living expenses. Why? Because either way, you would have had the same living expenses. Say you would have paid the same rent and had other expenses for transportation, food, etc. So the opportunity cost of doing an MBA is the cost of the MBA itself plus the foregone salary, the wages that you would not get for 2 years, which you would have otherwise gotten. So is this clarify the idea of opportunity cost a little bit more?
Yes, it does. And to dig a little bit deeper into the MBA example, so let's say I am considering an MBA right now, and I assume that over the course of next 2 years, my salary doesn't go up and the rents are equally comparable wherever I'm thinking of going and all that stuff. Then I have to assume that after I get an MBA, my salary should jump from at least $80,000 to some high enough number that I'm able to recover this cost in a reasonable amount of time, right? That's only then my MBA makes sense.
Yes, so you have to consider the full cost. So opportunity cost is the idea that you're taking into account the full cost of doing taking an action. And therefore, you have to make a decision that whether it is rational or not, it depends upon the full cost, and then you have to project into the future what are the benefits, the stream of benefits that you will get from the MBA. Suppose your working life is 30 more years, and each year you will get an extra salary of say $20,000 because now you're an MBA. Then you have to also take the net present value of all the future stream of income, the difference in the future stream of income. And then you add the whole thing up, which is called the net present value of the future stream of incomes, and then you compare the two. You say my net present value of the additional future stream of income is going to be $500,000, so it makes sense for me to spend $260,000 today, because that is lower than the $500,000 that I have, will get more, and it's the net present value of the future stream of income. So therefore it is rational.
Just to make sure, the net present value that you mentioned, and it seems like an important term, is the total benefit I can expect out of this career move or this action that I'm about to take, right?
Yeah. So just to briefly indicate what net present value is. Today you have $100. Mm-hmm. Now, if I were to promise you $100 next year, that is not today, or let me put it this way: you have $100, you give me the $100 and charge me say 5% interest per year. Mm-hmm. So, which means that I'll take $100 from you today and I return you $105 because that's the interest that you're going to get. Hmm. So, because of the interest thing, it is $105 next year is the net present value of that $100. $105 next year is actually $100 today. The net present value of $105 next year is $100. It depends upon the interest rate.
Huh.
So if the net present value of $100 is of $105, today is $100, and go further up down the road and say 2 years from now, if you had $110, the net present value of that to $110 today is $100. That is, we are doing simple interest, that every year you get $5 more on $100. So the further into the future a certain amount is, its net present value is lower today.
Okay.
So the entire stream of income that you'll get, you need to adjust it for the comparison today. You'll make a comparison today. So making the comparison today, you cannot take just the nominal values of say every year you're going to get $20,000 more for say 30 years. You have to compare the net present value of those stream of income that you have to appropriately deflate it, reduce it. Like $105 next year, net present value today is $100 because the interest rate is 5%.
Okay, that's a good explanation. I understand the point here. But then you mentioned something interesting in the conversation here, right? People are not always rational. People don't take rational decisions all the time.
Yeah.
So
One example of this irrationality of people is when we try to, let me tell you a story. If you wanted to go buy, let's say, a computer bag,
okay.
a laptop bag, and you find that Fry's in your neighborhood is selling it for $40, whereas someone else tells you that Best Buy is selling it for $30. So Fry's is selling it for 40, Best Buy has a lower price at $30. Which store would you rationally go to? You'll say, I'll go and buy it from the cheaper place, right?
Yes, it's a good deal.
Okay. Now, but if I tell you that, listen, Best Buy is across town, and it'll save you $10. Most people will say, okay, I'll go across town and get it for a cheaper price. On the other hand, if you're not buying a laptop bag, but instead we're buying a laptop itself, one of those fancy Apple MacBooks,
okay,
Apple Air and all that. So if Fry's is selling it for $1,400 and Best Buy you can get it for $1,390, you'll say, oh, why bother? It's just $10. It's the same item. Why bother? Go to another store, drive some distance and buy it. The question is that if it is rational for you to drive across to Best Buy's to save $10, it should be rational for you to do this regardless of whether you're buying a $40 item or a $1,400 item. But people are not rational in that sense, that most people will say, it's just $10 less at the other store and I'm spending $1,400. It doesn't make much of a difference. Whereas in the case of a laptop bag, you will actually get out of the store and drive over to the Best Buys to save $10 because your internal calculation says that of $40, I'm saving 25% to get it at $30. Whereas in the case of a laptop, you're not really saving all that much because you're already spending $1,400.
Yes, and that's, now that you mention it, we always implicitly tend to do a percentage calculation, whereas in this case, very clearly, that trip across town to Best Buy to save $10 we should always be looking at the absolute value that we save and not, $1,390 versus $1,400 or 30 versus 40.
That's right. So the relevant thing here is we are saving $10, and if we decide to drive to save $10, we should do that regardless of whether we are buying a laptop or a laptop bag. Actually, next time we will talk about comparative advantage, which has something to do with opportunity cost. How much time does it take for you to do something? That's the important thing. The most relevant factor that we have to consider in economics is time. And time translates into money. And therefore, we can derive why trade is good, why exchange is good, just by considering the idea of opportunity cost, which we will consider the next time.
Yes, time is money. We have heard that so many times, but I'm looking forward to the next episode where I can finally have some economic
justification, an economic justification of the old adage, time is money.
Yes, then I'll appear more wise than I am. Thank you, Atanu. Thank you so much for educating us. Hope you have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you very much. You have a good one. Bye.
Bye. That's it for this week, people. But don't forget to leave us your questions on Facebook at facebook.com/economically speaking, Our Twitter handle is @EconSpeaking. Each week, we chat with Atanu De on matters generally related to economics. This is Economically Speaking with your host Sudipto Chatterjee. Until next time, goodbye.